Nicolae Ceausescu's Romania was the site of a television experiment, an experiment which served to demonstrate where the future power of television propaganda lay. Ceausescu sought to impress the Romanian TV viewer with staged demonstrations of adoration. But Romanians in the 1970s were being influenced from a less obvious source.
Da, l-am urmărit cu capitanul, cu multe probleme ce am văzut acolo. Mi-a fost foarte drag și foarte mult mi-a plăcut de cele ce am văzut în film.
Era, da, bine, dar era un film care te atrăgea, un film, cum să spun, un film care te documenta în diferite poziții, în diferite probleme.
I like a smart ship, Mr. Baines. A smart ship and a clean ship.
Am urmărit cu multă plăcere serialul Capitanul Onedi și mi-a plăcut foarte mult acel film. Toate acțiunile mi-au plăcut, care a fost la Capitanul Onedi pentru când era el în toate misiunile lui.
Right, Mr. Baines, clean the hold out and get ready to load casks for Lisbon.
We got a boatload?
Enough to fill it twice over. That's where the profit lies. Portuguese casks, not Irish hawkers. Sharp as you like, Mr. Baines.
Ceausescu was one of the few communist leaders the West was happy to deal with. He was an honored guest of the Queen in 1978 and visited America and President Nixon 4 times. Western friendship brought Ceausescu many benefits, including television programs like Dallas and the Onedin Line, which were offered to him at very little cost. Ceausescu told Romanian TV executives in Bucharest to use the Western programs simply to fill up the airwaves. He thought that since they were mere entertainment, they weren't important. But his TV executives knew he was wrong.
Foamea telespectatorului român de programe de alt gen decât cele fabricate în televiziunea română, care oricum avea un alt caracter, era atât de mare încât nu se putea să nu ții cont și de gustul publicului și să nu cumperi programe din Occident.
Tot cu asta, cu comboi, cum spune Iulian. Cowboy, da? Și multe de astea noi urmărim, când ne place foarte mult.
Ăla care a fost înainte cu multe.
Everybody in Romania wanted a capitalist way of life and not a socialist way of life, which was worse. That was only human. So, of course, people were absolutely happy. And Ceausescu couldn't have imagined how right he was to let people have all this stuff, enjoy it, and be quiet, be happy with it.
All hands aloft! Shake out the sails, Mr. Baines! Let's get underway again! Senor Braganza's awaiting his vine!
Aye, aye, sir.
So popular did the Onedin Line become that Peter Gilmore, the actor who played Mr. Onedin, was invited to visit Romania, where he found a country full of fans.
I think they did enormously enjoy it, and I got the impression that they enjoyed it very much, that they sort of knew me because of this, but I wasn't a Romanian character. I think they enjoyed it enormously. I could tell. I mean, going through blockades of police and all that, you just had to sort of show one's face and one was let through anywhere. Here I'm talking about something I know nothing about, as usual. Here they're teaching me a local dance, and I'm galumping around like an elephant. Here at the end of this dance, they're supposed to finish with a little kiss, which was really quite sweet. The students gave me this peculiar representational thing. What it represents, none of us know, really. I suspect it's a sort of anchor and people watching a television screen, and it says, "To Mr. Peter Gilmore, on behalf of the Bucharest students, with warm regards and appreciation." And then a little arrow here saying it's the House of Culture has seen through a porthole of an Aniden liner ship. And that was 1978.
Dave Allen at Large was another hit with the Romanians, along with American serials like Kojak and Columbo. Surprisingly, watching the Western TV programs didn't make Romanians restless and discontent. Instead, programs like these seemed to have made it easier to survive under Ceausescu's oppressive rule.
Dar chiar dacă ți-e frig și n-ai ce mânca, măcar vrei să te uiți pe geam în casa celui care trăiește bine și nu e frig. Măcar să privești pe geam din stradă. Nu, repet, nu mă întorc la Andersen, la Fetiție cu chiprituri și alte lucruri, dar dacă poți să arunci un ochi într-o casă de oameni fericiți, parcă totuși te mai încălzești un pic.
And then came disaster, for both the Romanian TV viewer and for those who worked at Romanian TV. In 1983, Ceausescu decided to repay all his foreign debt. In the years of austerity that followed, Romanians suffered massively. Food was rationed, clothes were rationed, and even TV was rationed, with output cut to only 2 hours a day.
At the beginning, we lost the serials. Afterwards, we lost the new movies. They gave only old ones. And step by step, we lost which was the most interesting in our programs, and the news things also.
It just stopped from one week to another. And then we used to wait for a film or for a series. And then, without any notice, the program was changed. And you were so disappointed.
Western programs disappeared from Romanian TV screens. And in their place came films which, whilst they may have been as fictional as Dallas of the Aniden Line, were much less entertaining.
De profundă satisfacție și totală adeziune la hotărârea plenarei Comitetului Central privind propunerea de realegere a tovarășului Nicolae Ceaușescu la cel de-al 14-lea Congres în suprema funcție de secretar general al partidului. Văzând în această opțiune,
they started to give you more and more propaganda and all those awful shows about, how people loved him, and all these songs of glory, and all those poems, endless poems.
Cu el urcăm prin vreme, popor viteaz și demn, spre piscuri de înflorire, spre comunistul țel. Ne este Ceaușescu exemplu în faptă și cuvânt, bărbatul brav al țării de temerară fire.
We had only 2 hours of program a day. Why? We were told that the family Ceausescu and his wife are able to watch the television only 2 hours. They wanted to have the complete sight of the programs.
And then, just when the Romanian viewer thought television programs couldn't get any worse, they got worse. Ceausescu visited fellow megalomaniac, President Kim of North Korea, and was inspired by the propaganda he saw there. North Korean TV became the model for how Ceausescu wished Romanian TV to look.
You cannot transform TV exclusively into an ideological or political message. And this was the Ceausescu attempt. When he reduced the TV program at 2 hours per day, these 2 hours were 2 hours of compact ideological discourse.
And that 2 hours of ideological TV even contained some North Korean programs. This one told children how cruel the American imperialists were.
땅속에 파묻어버리고 그리고 젖달라고 우는 어린 애기들을 휘발유를 먹여놓고는 불리려 죽이는 그런 귀책 같은 만행들을 감행했습니다. 이런 만행들을 감행한 미제 승야인 놈들을 온 세상 사람들은 뭐라고 하나요?
By now, many Romanian TV viewers had had enough. During 1984, illegal round aerials began to appear on the city skyline. With these new aerials, Romanians could receive TV programs from nearby Bulgaria. This was the first act of open defiance against Ceausescu.
There was no real attempt to stop, because in fact they simply couldn't. And finally, even the state workshops started to manufacture such aerials because it was a good business. It was the only source of getting some information or some entertainment or just improving one's life, if you want. Just changing a little bit the image of one saw every day and changing one's ideas and trying to get some fun.
Господин президент, предлагам ви изгодна сделка. Спешно разменям 10 мои маршали, само срещу 2 ваши генерали.
Кои генерали?
General Motors и General Electric.
So popular did Bulgarian TV become that the Bulgarian Airlines office in the Romanian capital Bucharest started to pin the schedule for that night's Bulgarian TV on its window. And there was a rush of Romanians joining night classes in order to learn to speak Bulgarian. The desire of the Romanian TV viewers to watch Bulgarian entertainment programs had an unexpected consequence. For along with the light entertainment programs came the TV news. The Bulgarians reported the revolutions that were sweeping Europe. And even though Bulgaria had a communist regime in 1989, they still broadcast a story celebrating the fall of the Berlin Wall. None of these pictures appeared on Ceausescu's TV news.
At the Romanian television, we had for 5 minutes all the events in the world, and the Bulgarian television, it was an hour for all the events. We saw demonstrations from Czechoslovakia, and 2 days before our revolution, we saw the images from Timișoara, where everything started on the 17th. We saw all the images of our revolution at Bulgarian television. And witnesses, Bulgarian witnesses who were there, and they saw all the violence, all the things that happened, and we were shocked.
On the 21st of December, Ceausescu stood here on the balcony of the headquarters of the Communist Party. He did not realize he was speaking to a crowd who, thanks to Bulgarian TV, knew of the revolution which had begun in the north of Romania. Ceausescu heard the crowd shout "Timișoara, Timișoara," and realized he had lost control. Moments later, Romanian TV screens went blank. After Ceausescu's overthrow, Romanian TV changed radically. TV output increased from 2 hours a day to 18 hours a day. The news is no longer censored and carries reports from all over the world. And after a gap of nearly 10 years, Romanian TV viewers once more enjoy the programs which Ceausescu denied them. Some of the first relief planes into Romania after Ceausescu's death brought with them foreign entertainment programs.
You're like a fish.
Thank you very much.
Well, tomorrow we go back to England to spend the rest of our life together.
Nicolae Ceausescu never realized the political importance of entertainment television. But 3,000 miles away in India, politicians have learnt the propaganda power of the TV soap. In most Indian villages on a Sunday morning, you will find the streets deserted. But the villagers are not worshipping at the conventional shrine in the Hindu temple. Instead, the whole village has gathered to watch television. Rajiv Gandhi promised that every village would have a TV in order that Indians could watch educational programs. But crowds like this don't gather every Sunday morning in order to be educated. They gather to watch soap operas. The most popular soap opera in the history of television was the Ramayan. Some episodes were watched by 650 million people. The 78-part series was based on a famous Hindu epic and told the story of the adventures of the god king Ram and his wife, Sita.
Jai Shri Ram!
The effect of the TV series on the Indian population was without precedent.
When the Ramayana series was being telecast at 9 o'clock, before that they would finish their bath and everything, get fresh, and sit before the television as if they are going to the temple to adore the deity. The whole atmosphere created in that was as if real Rama has come to the television. So that has great impact.
I could see some of the slightly elderly people would touch the floor also, in reverence when they saw Ram or Sita.
The man who created the Ramayana on TV was a 71-year-old producer called Ramanand Sagar. He became a national hero, and when he visited Ujjain in central India, 100,000 people turned out to greet him.
The master above wanted me to do this work in this language. I am like a postman, Lawrence. What our great seers and great rishis have said, their message to the mankind, I have only brought that back to the mankind today, which needed it. This kind of work is not possible for a human being to do. That's why I don't take any credit for all this work, what has happened. I'm just a small piece in the whole machine.
Sagar won over 20 awards for the Ramayana, and he was voted India's Man of the Year. And he received more than the normal plaudits a successful producer can expect. Some people began almost to worship him.
These are the most dangerous moments in a devotee's, in a bhakta's life are this. When people start touching their feet, when they lie prostrate, I go to a big house of one of the biggest families of the country, and I find all the people lying flat on the ground and to receive me. Those are when I get disturbed, very much disturbed.
The Ramayana could not have been transmitted without the approval of Rajiv Gandhi and the Congress Party, who were then in power. because Indian TV is state-controlled.
Well, I can tell you on the basis of the conversation I had with Rajiv Gandhi himself, at a breakfast meeting he had with the TV critics in 1987, that a number of us told him that it's a political decision you have made to put on Ramayana. But after the meeting, it became very clear that there was a very distinct fear of disorder in India at that time. So a deliberate decision was made to go over to religion, so as a kind of an influence which will, dampen these flares.
But it wasn't the Congress Party who benefited from the showing of the Ramayana. It was the Hindu Nationalist Party, the BJP. At their rallies, strange figures appeared who looked as though they could have come straight out of the soap opera. The Ramayana, with its tales of the bravery of Hindu gods, became evidence of the power of the Hindu people and was used to justify the political aims of the BJP.
I think that aspect is a byproduct. It was not neither aimed at nor meant for, but it's a byproduct. I believe the Congress, I told once Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, I said, you started this Ramayana, you okayed the Ramayana, and you never took advantage of this. Politics is not my field. I know nothing about the politics, because politics is, Lawrence, a very small time job. Politics is for 10 years, 5 years, 50 years. I'm not dealing with 50 years' time. I'm dealing with eternal time period. My times are more than centuries, millenniums.
Saga had deliberately chosen unknown actors to play the major parts, so that the audience would identify them totally with the mythological characters they portrayed. The goddess Sita was played by the then 20-year-old unknown actress, Deepika.
The very fact that you say Sita, people, the ladies think that they would be automatically in Swarg. Swarg is heaven. So it's one of those kinds of things that just chanting Sita's name can open the doors to heaven. So, I mean, I don't think I got to say anything more than that. It's a very pious image.
Just as audiences in the West often confuse fiction and fact when it comes to soap operas, so some in the Indian audience suspended disbelief and began to believe that this was the real Sita.
I had all kinds of fan mails coming across to me, and they did treat me like Sita. They used to, I mean, I still have letters where my name is Deepika, and in brackets they write Sita Ji. And even the postman knows it, so immediately it comes, to Bombay and on my address, and it comes home. And they write all kinds of things like, my son's not feeling well and please visit, and I'm sure he'll get all right if you just come across and see us. So, and things like that. And they invite me across for their weddings. I don't even know who they are.
The BJP party recognized the potential political power of those actors who had starred in the Ramayana. They approached almost all of the major stars and asked them if they would stand for Parliament. They even approached the youthful Deepika.
I had nothing at all to do with politics at all, ever. I never really had politics in mind. The BJP offered me the ticket, and I kept refusing. They kept offering, and I kept refusing. And one fine day, I said, okay, I'll take it. And that's it. I filed a nomination, and I was the candidate.
Deepika stood for Parliament in the Indian general election of 1991, and despite her complete lack of experience, drew huge crowds at her election rallies. The constant exposure she'd been given by the 78 episodes of the Ramayana had made her one of the most famous people in India, and the BJP knew the secret of her appeal to the voter.
Certainly, the way the whole thing was presented, the way the party presented it, it was all around Sita. It was around the role that Sita had played. There was nothing to show that, the person's background was political, the person had some, background in social service. It was all focused on her role as Sita.
Deepika stood against one of the most experienced politicians in the Congress party, the Maharaja of Baroda. Yet still she won by a margin of more than 15%. But had Deepika's constituents voted for her or for Sita?
They felt that since this person had played the role of Sita, it was right and proper to give her the vote, and maybe if they didn't give her the vote, it would invite some serious consequences, evil consequences. It's a superstition.
That's right. That we have seen even in this town, Baroda, people, 500, 2,000 old ladies, women will come out with the thalis, with the earthen lamps and do the worship to her. Because for them it was Sita. She was only Sita. They're voting for Sita because they saw Sita in her.
They thought she was real Sita. They thought she represents the values which they have been adoring in Sita. So they voted for Sita.
Deepika took her seat in Parliament in August 1991, along with one of her co-stars from the Ramayan, Arvind Trivedi, who had also stood at the invitation of the BJP. Each of these two MPs represents over 1 million constituents. Each of them admit they owe their political success to the Ramayan.
It is absurd. For democracy, if such people are elected, just because they have played one role of Sita, it is really absurd. This can't be said that she really represents people of that part.
If Rajiv Gandhi had thought that the Ramayan would act as a calming and unifying influence on the Indian population, then he was wrong. Since the showing of the Ramayan and the rise of the BJP to be the main opposition party, the number of religious riots in India has increased.
I'm beginning to think they realize that they have sort of stirred up a hornet's nest. I mean, they stirred up or rather to put it correctly, opened a Pandora's box, and out of this, all kinds of things are flying out. I can say this without fear of contradiction. Switch off these mythological epics. Indians will go back to being what they were, means tolerant of each other. Local conflicts will continue, but this kind of a majority extremism will certainly not be there.
Krishna. Ramanand Sagar brings to you the greatest of all spiritual stories, the story of Krishna, the Supreme Godhead. Krishna, coming to bestow eternal spiritual peace upon the troubled world.
This promotional video is designed to sell Krishna, Ramanand Sagar's latest religious TV epic.
हमारा दर्शन कभी निष्फल नहीं होता, इसलिए मांगो क्या चाहिए? सबसे बड़ा फल तो आपका दर्शन है, स्वामी.
Like the Ramayan, Krishna will be a 78-episode mythological soap opera. Unlike the Ramayan, the government won't allow it to be shown on national television.
I still hope that it will be shown soon. Otherwise, Lawrence, after 100 years, after 500 years, this will be shown.
Back a little.
Saga has already sold Krishna to more than a dozen countries, including Indonesia and Canada. In India, it's only been available on video cassette, so has reached just a fraction of the audience the Ramayan did. Indian politicians are now aware of the enormous political force of entertainment television.
Everybody, roll camera. Music.
Ramanand Sagar carries on producing more episodes of Krishna, despite Indian TV's refusal to show this new epic.
Fog, fog. 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 Cut. What happened to fog? What happened to fog?
It isn't just in India that inexperienced candidates are being elected to power with the help of their TV image. The city of Lima, capital of Peru, is under the control of a man who admits he owes all of his political success to television. Lima is beset by grave social problems. There is terrorism. The shining paths still regularly blow up buildings and buses. There is disease. Recently, cholera broke out because sewage leaked into the water system. And there is poverty. Every day, hundreds turn up in the city from the surrounding countryside looking for work. If there is any city in the world that needs able political leadership to deal with its many problems, then it is Lima. The owner of this television station, one of the most famous men in Peru, believed he could provide that leadership. He is Ricardo Belmont, a TV presenter who started his career as a disc jockey. His TV network, which is known by his initials RBC, broadcasts to the whole of Lima. There is no state control of television here in Peru, and Ricardo Belmont is able to broadcast what he chooses on his own TV channel. His first big success as a TV presenter was fronting the annual Peruvian telethon, in which viewers ring in to offer donations to help disabled children. Having started as a disc jockey and fronting a telethon, the nearest British equivalent to Ricardo Belmont is Terry Wogan.
This is my public. No?
Like Terry Wogan, Ricardo Belmont is known everywhere.
I have the 99% of recognition from the people. Everybody knows me in all the country. Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien. Hola.
¿Cómo está Ricardito?
Bien.
Buenos días.
No? So the people is friendly. Most of the people. I would say 90% of the people is friendly. 90%. Yeah. Oi!
Ricardo Belmont announced that he would stand for election as mayor of Lima. Belmont had no previous political experience. He wasn't even a member of any political party. But none of that mattered alongside his greatest asset, the popularity that 15 years on TV and radio had given him. He formed his own party and went ahead and stood for election in 1989.
Venimos con entusiasmo, venimos a trabajar para devolverle a Lima su belleza singular. Y tú a trabajar y yo a trabajar y tú a trabajar y yo a trabajar.
To the disbelief of his more conventional opponents, Belmont won the election and is now mayor of Lima. He divides his time between his TV studio and the neo-colonial building that is Lima's town hall.
I wasn't afraid to say what I think. And my convictions were so strong that almost 50% of the whole city vote for me in that election. The highest votation in all history in Lima.
Bueno, estamos haciendo algunas obritas, ¿no? No tanto, porque no hay mucha plata, pero algo estamos haciendo. Estamos asfaltando varias calles acá.
Sí, así lo veo. Ahora ya.
¿A dónde es Salaberry?
Sí, San
Francisco, José Galvez y Salaberry. Son las tres paralelas que caminan.
In his own propaganda, transmitted by his own TV station, Belmont built on the image which hosting the Disabled Children's Telethon had given him. A television image of a man who cared about the poor and the underprivileged. His TV cameras show him up in the shanty towns, sorting out the practical problems that oppress the poor.
I think they have the image that, as a friend, because I always speak in a simple language, very simple, and direct language, colloquial way. I used to talk to anyone, and my contact with the people made for me very easy to understand what they want.
Una losa deportiva o el asfalto de las pistas.
Claro, sí.
Pero por
Allá
favor,
es va a ser una losita dice deportiva.
ahorita voy a
allá hay
hacerlo.
campo,
Pero
sí.
no pague nada, por favor.
I owe this city hall to be the mayor of Lima to television, really.
Belmont first sat in the mayoral chair on the 2nd of January 1990. The poor of Lima who had voted him into office expected him to get down to work in the council chamber. But the council chamber of Lima Town Hall has not seen that much of him. During 1991, Belmont only attended 20% of the meetings of the council. Nothing in his previous career as a disc jockey had prepared Belmont for the practical realities of politics, and he found it hard to negotiate with other politicians in order to get anything done. The fact that he had come from nowhere and founded his own political party had made him few friends amongst more traditional politicians. Belmont's absence from the council chamber was often remarked upon.
You can find him in the pool, maybe thinking about the problem of the poor people, but not in the council. He doesn't, he's not, you are lucky if you find the mayor, Belmont, conducting a session in the council. Maybe he goes 5 minutes and says, the minister's calling me, the president's calling me, but you call his house and you find him in the pool. So it doesn't work. That's the problem.
La publicación del balance ha afectado un poco.
El balance es malo, sí, malo.
No es diario, pero se va consiguiendo esporádicamente.
Pepe Luque actually managed Belmont's election campaign. His high hopes of the fresh approach Belmont would bring to politics in Lima have been shattered.
Personally, I feel guilty myself because I didn't know, knowing Belmont for 20 years, but I wasn't as close as other people with Belmont to see him in his house or inside his house. I didn't know Belmont didn't like to work. He doesn't like to work. And he says, well, I can work 2 or 3 hours, not more than that. And he says it now. But I didn't know that.
Ricardo Belmont emphatically denies that he is lazy and that he spends too much time in the pool of his luxury house on the outskirts of Lima. He believes there's a simple explanation for many of the criticisms which are thrown at him.
When a journalist is jealous sometimes because he thinks that he could be in my place, I tell him, do it, try it. Maybe you have the privilege or maybe la desgracia de ser elegido alcalde, because it's not easy to be mayor. You suffer a lot. Your family suffers. You are always amenazado de muerte. Everything changed.
Whether Belmont spends too much time in the pool or not is a matter of dispute. What isn't in dispute is that the social problems of Lima are immense and that they are growing. The chief practical problem is the presence of the street vendors who clog the center of Lima, causing traffic chaos. As mayor, Belmont is held responsible for the mess.
Malo, muy malo. Es decir, si vemos los problemas grandes de la ciudad, la basura, la suciedad de la ciudad, si vemos el problema de los ambulantes en la ciudad, si vemos el problema de el tránsito vehicular, que es control municipal, si vemos, en fin, la suma de problemas, el de abastecimiento, los mercados, el control de precios, ha sido un malo, un pésimo alcalde. Es un alcalde a quien simplemente no se le nota y a quien en su programa televisivo pareciera que estuviera viviendo una película de ciencia ficción, porque no corresponde en nada a lo que él realmente hace por la ciudad.
They don't know the country, they don't know the city. Anyone who said that is living in another country. We have almost 1 million vendors in Lima. 1 million. If they are vendors, because somebody is buying their products, and they are working decently. The politics that never work don't like people to start from the ground floor.
Sino de que tiene una imagen de la televisión determinada, tiene la imagen del que es amigo de todos. Es decir, esta práctica que le señalaba de decir hermanón a todo el mundo, hay que trabajar, hay que poner el hombro para sacar adelante la ciudad, el dar soluciones facilistas hacia todas las cosas, el tener respuestas para todo.
Every Sunday morning, Belmont leaves his home for a crucial appointment, one for which he is always on time.
Vamos.
Followed by his own personal bodyguard and then his police bodyguard, he drives from the suburbs into the center of Lima.
Se inicia la primera clásica internacional Ciudad de Lima, la primera maratón.
With his armed guards and attendants, Belmont presents his own 3-hour TV show. Since he owns the TV station, he can talk about what he likes for as long as he likes. Mostly what he likes to talk about is what he has achieved as mayor.
En todo el mundo han sido cuestionadas las encuestas, alto grado de manipulación o quejas de los pobladores. Va a haber un informe especial.
True to his TV image as a man of the people, he operates a phone-in. Each of the 2 phones on his desk can be rung direct by anyone in the city. No one vets the calls in any way.
Listo. Para atrás ni para tomar impulso. Muchas gracias. Ok, aquí tenemos otra llamada, ¿no?
Sometimes the callers are obscene, but mostly those who phone in are in support of the mayor. One reason for this may be that the viewers of his program also watch Belmont propaganda like this.
Vámonos hasta Villa María.
Aún así, falta mucho por hacer en este distrito, cuya población es mayoritariamente joven y sus necesidades son cada vez mayores. En ese sentido, la Municipalidad de Lima Metropolitana ha conseguido que obras como pavimentación de pistas, implementación de pozas médicas y construcción de losas deportivas sean vistas por la población con un futuro muy próximo. El alcalde Ricardo Belmont Casinelli inspeccionó personalmente las numerosas obras que el municipio capitalino está ejecutando en beneficio de los pobladores de diversos asentamientos humanos.
Life in the shanty towns of Lima is grim. The people who live here face the same problems as those who live in the city, plus a few of their own, like lack of running water. But whilst there may not be adequate sanitation in the shanty towns, there are televisions. So the voters are able to contrast the propaganda image of their TV mayor with the reality of their daily lives.
Porque en primer lugar, cuando se la eligió a él, modestamente se creía que iba a ser un buen alcalde, pero para la gente humilde y la gente pobre nos subió los pasajes de un momento a otro. ¿Por qué? Porque él tiene su flota de carros en Lima. Todo es conveniencia personal. Los políticos son personales, pero no para el pueblo. Aquí no estamos muriendo de hambre, no tenemos que comer.
Sobre él, sobre el alcalde, bueno, ¿cómo le puede decir? Yo creo que el alcalde más hace para jalar para su canal que más para la alcaldía, porque hasta ahorita no se le ve nada de lo que hace, ¿no? No hace mucho nada de trabajo, no se le ve nada, no sé qué hará.
Sí, en televisión se le ve muy bien, un hombre muy simpático, muy agradable, trato cortés con todas las personas, en televisión es muy bueno. Pero nosotros los ciudadanos no observamos eso, sino observamos la ciudad, ¿no? Cómo anda, el orden, el avance, el aseo, limpieza de la ciudad, todo eso observamos nosotros, entonces la falla está en eso. Belmont nos impresionó porque hacía una teletón, entonces la gente le daba dinero así para una obra social muy importante, por supuesto, pero una sola. En cambio, cuando se ve pues, con un sinnúmero de problemas, ahí está la cosa que ya Belmont ya no falló. Entonces no votaría por él otra vez.
Y conmigo hasta la próxima semana, Dios mediante. Muchas gracias.
The story of Ricardo Belmont is not an isolated one in South America. In Bolivia, Carlos Palenque stood to be president in 1989. Like Belmont, he formed his own party and drew huge crowds to his election rallies. Palenque only narrowly failed in his bid to become president and now plans to run again for the presidency of Bolivia in 1993.
Bien, el caso de la comadre creo que es el caso de los piececitos.
Like Belmont, Carlos Palenque owes his fame to television, where he presents a TV program investigating the social problems of the poor. Like Belmont, the image he presents to the people is one of compassion and care.
Sí, efectivamente, son menores.
Llore para Canal 4. Qué bien. Así.
In Brazil, Silvio Santos presents a TV show which also appeals to the poor and the underprivileged. His TV show is pure fun, featuring dancing, talent shows, and transvestite singers. In 1989, Silvio Santos stood to become president of Brazil. He had no previous political experience, yet he led in the opinion polls before he was forced to leave the race because his nomination had been registered too late. Film and TV stars have been elected to high office before, but this is a new phenomenon. Of TV stars who develop an image over countless TV episodes and then are voted into office largely because of that TV image. Candidates of the future may not need to have any political experience before seeking major office, but they might need to have starred in their own TV show.
The Big Picture returns on Thursday, the 1st of April, to make way for our exciting new collection of 7 original plays for television. Stories of lust, pride, sloth, greed, gluttony, envy and wrath. Don't miss the 7 Deadly Sins beginning next Tuesday night at 9:30. Stay with us now for ABC News Late Edition.